Welcome. Welcome to this Sunday evening, October 4th. This is the first evening of the night and the first in our series of questions and discussions on belief. Now, of course, all of this is in preparation for you to be able to watch the documentary that Oprah will be premiering on October 18th. Each one of the segments of those 7 nights is filled with so much richness, so much incredible love and sharing of beliefs and information about each other, about your brothers and sisters of humanity. And there's preparation that needs to take place. The reason for that is that we spend our daily lives very often consumed with just the day-to-day ordeal of getting through our lives, and of course, always trying to do our best, but not necessarily thinking about some of the questions that allow us to go deep into the real essence of our being. And I want you to know that the 7-part series, the documentary that Oprah has produced, will do that. And so in preparation of that, we want to begin to ask ourselves some questions about our own beliefs that may be difficult. They may be very simple, but nonetheless, they are questions which need to be asked. Last time we were together, I had offered 3 questions that I asked you to think about in preparation even for this evening. One of them was, what's your vision of a healed world? And it's my hope that you spent some time thinking about that. The truth is that we create our world, our lives, based upon what it is that we are envisioning. And it's that vision, if shared, that we can all strive to align with and really be very proactive in creating. And so the question, what does it look like to you, will be one which actually will shorten that gap between where you are now and where you want to be. In fact, the moment that you ask that question, it's almost as if the entire universe begins to conspire and it starts to put into alignment everything that's associated with that vision. So your participation in envisioning what that healed world looks like is quite important. And I want to make certain that you know just how important you are. The second question was, why do we see division across belief systems? And I addressed that from my opinion. And that is that from my perspective, I actually see it as something quite natural, based upon our individual beliefs, based upon also the individual experiences that we've had, but also it is based on that vision of what we want to see in our world. So already we have 2 questions at hand that infer that if we start to come together with a shared vision and with a commonality in even in those divisions, perhaps in accepting of the differences, more than tolerating, celebrating those differences, but also making those differences still with one purpose. And so the third question was one where you were asked, what would be the one thing that you could do that could bring that all together? What is the one thing that you can do to further that cause of diminishing that gap that lies between us? And so if you spent any time with those thoughts, I would love for you to share them with us in just a few moments. And if you didn't, those 3 questions sort of segue into the question for tonight. And that question is, what do you believe? And how does that belief system bring you closer to your purpose? So when I first was asked that question, it really started a whole domino effect in my thoughts. First, I started to look at my life and my life's work and determine exactly what that was connected to. Now, obviously, because I'm here and you're there, my life's work is associated with teaching spiritual values, and also facilitating people's lives to be a greater expression, expansion, and extension of love. Because I believe that that is our shared purpose. I believe that each and every one of us, even though we may have an individual purpose or manifestation of that purpose, our shared purpose, our collaborative purpose in being here is always, number one, to be that expansion and extension of love. And so the next thought that I had was, how do we go about doing that? How do we start to heal the parts of us that are not in alignment with that? And for some, it's not even a conscious aspect of their life whatsoever. So in thinking about what really needs to take place through these discussions, and of course, in preparation for watching the documentary, I realized that we have to begin someplace on that first step of unity. So the more that we can find a place of commonality, common belief itself, that we can begin this process of coming together and utilizing all the power that we have to actually be proactive in creating the life that we all want to see, and the life, of course, that we all want to live in a world where we want to be a part of. So I thought it would be a good idea then that we start off by discussing what a belief is. And according to the dictionary, a belief is something that is a conviction. It's something that is a statement that you are certain is true, and that in that truth it becomes a driving force for your whole belief system then to be born. Okay, so there are tentacles that come off of this belief, your basic core belief. One of the things that I realized was how significant the programming that occurs during our lives is in developing our beliefs. Now, that programming can be something from our families, our parents, it can be our community, it can be our religion, it can be our society, it can be the world, it can be influences from media. And of course, we know how powerful the strength is of the beliefs of our friends. Okay, certainly at certain ages where we all are seeking to conform. So as we begin to look at this programming and how it affects our belief and the whole belief system that is developed because of that, we start to realize that in that programming that perhaps we have actually picked up some belief aspects that don't belong to us, and that we've just sort of taken on just because they belong to those that we looked up to, or those who we were under their care, or we were mentored by or taught by. And we just took them for face value. We never even questioned them. I know myself that there were many of those beliefs growing up that I'm sure that were a very basic part of the programming that brought me into adulthood. And I don't know about you, but I do know that my adulthood demanded of me, in fact, that I look at those beliefs, the beliefs that I had carried through from others, that not only didn't belong to me, but they really had nothing to do with me, and yet they were governing so much of my life, governing the choices that I made, governing the actions that I took, and even the way that I looked at myself and I felt about myself and I believed about myself. Many of those were dictated by others. And so I started to really look at how they had impacted my life. And of course, I came to the point where we all come, where we have to decide, well, is this belief serving me? Is it serving my higher good, or is it not serving my higher good? And is it time that I let it go and start exploring other beliefs, or do I hold it close and make certain that I continue to feed it and strengthen it within me? It's my belief that we are actually meant to do that our whole life long. Probably even from the time that we begin to be influenced by others. And so the more conscious that we are in our lives, and the more examining and reflective in our lives that we are, we can ask those really important questions of ourselves. Is this serving me? Is it serving my higher good? And as we begin to mature and we understand how what we choose and the actions that we take and who we are as people is represented in our lives, we also begin to understand how much we influence others. And so there is this moment in that recognition where we either step up to the plate and we start to make those shifts within ourselves. I call them heart shifts. Those heart shifts within ourselves that will create different thoughts and will create the different choices and different actions that we take, not only because it's for our higher good, but because we know it's for the higher good of all. In fact, all of humanity. What we've seen historically is that there are no religious belief systems that are not based on love and don't have the same basic core values of love itself. And it's those beliefs that we're going to start to look at. Particularly as you watch the documentary, you will see so many variations of spiritual belief systems. You will wonder how there could be so many. And yet in each one, there is this component of love that is taught, and this search for meaning, search for purpose, and of course the search for God, the search to understand God and understand our relationship to God. And so when we talk about our beliefs, there are many aspects of it that go into it. But at the end of the day, it's our individual beliefs which need to be examined so that we can determine where we are in this world, where we are in terms of influencing those around us, and how proactive are we in actually creating that life that we want to live and being what we want to see in the world. So when I started to think about belief, that was my whole sort of train of thought. And I wanted to share it with you. You can see it gets sort of convoluted at times. But you know, at the end of our last session, there was a question that came up actually on YouTube that I wanted to share with you. Because the question was, what's the difference between belief and faith? And I thought, what a great question, and it's not one that we often think of, because even when you go to the dictionary, as I did to look up belief, faith is used as a word that's synonymous with belief. And yet I had a sense that there was a difference. And as I thought about faith, then I started to look at it from a place that actually was a bit different from belief. Belief, because what I've found in my work in these 40 some years working with people, is that this system of belief that we have within us governs us. In other words, it actually has control over us. And as I said before, it determines our whole perspective on life. It also determines the thoughts that we think, the choices that we make, the actions that we take. And so why is it that belief and faith are sort of thrown in together when I see faith a little differently? And I'd love to know how you see faith. I see faith as more esoteric, as more of a connection to something that is not necessarily connected to the programming, but is connected to something outside of the programming. In other words, that faith is more of an energy that is connected to something that is perhaps we see outside of ourselves. So we're looking to it as an energy to draw from, perhaps even when our belief is not quite enough. And of course, as everything works with the world of synchronicities, I was reading this week in a book, and I'd like to share this with you. The name of the book is Journey Beyond Words, and it was written by Brent Haskell, PhD. Now, this is a companion book to Course in Miracles, okay? But I'd like to read to you what it says about faith. What is this faith? Faith is what you do, whatever you do, that allows you in your thinking to first believe, second, to imagine, third, to feel, and fourth, to know that you are the Son of God. Well, when I came across that, I was so taken by the power of those words, because first of all, it reminded me of the steps of manifestation. It reminded me all about the step and how important it is to believe, right? But to have your belief in a way that allows you to expand your thinking, to expand your ability to imagine, to expand your ability to feel, and then to lead you to knowing that you are the Son of God, that you are deserving of all of the love, the beauty, the abundance, the prosperity of this world, all of the gifts, the joy, the peace, the health, the contentment, the fulfillment. And then it suddenly became very clear to me about the difference between belief and faith. Because what I have found is that so often it is a belief system which actually prevents a person from having in their lives the things that they know will make their heart sing, that they are absolutely yearning for. And feel in some way that they are being kept separate from it. I've seen people who have belief systems that have become so dogmatic that they have no interest in exploring what is outside of it. And in that closing down, they have narrowed their world so much that the things that they actually want and desire and deserve can't make their way through. From my perspective, that's an energy match issue, okay? One thing I know is that creative energy is an energy of very high frequency. It's a frequency of light. The creative life force is the energy of the God consciousness, which has created the entire universe. And so when we are looking to create things in our lives that are in alignment with that God consciousness, that love, that high frequency of energy, we of course need to be able to tap into it and tune into it. Well, the only way to do that is to expand beyond where we are now, to extend beyond where our thoughts are now, our beliefs are now, and to be able to welcome in the possibility of all of that coming to life, coming into our life. So there's a preparation that needs to take place that actually requires us to examine the beliefs that we are now living in, that are governing our lives, if in fact we are being held separate from the things that we know we want, desire, and deserve. So where does this faith come in then? Well, it would seem to me that faith is that energy that connects the two. Faith is the energy where we can say, well, here we are now, but this is where I want to be. And that faith is this energy that can actually propel us forward because it gives us permission to believe something different. It gives us permission to imagine something different. And what I know is one of the most powerful aspects of manifesting anything is when we begin to ask ourselves the question, what if? What if that could really be? What if that really is waiting for me? And so what I found is that faith is actually the perfect companion to belief. And in the series that you will hopefully be watching starting on the 18th, you will see that it is through this expansive thinking, it is through the extension of our hearts, the expansion of our own love, that creates a new connectedness. And it's that connectedness that allows us then to fully connect to this creative life force that we are a part of. We're actually partnered with. So it brings us to our question for the night. How is our belief system bringing us closer to our life purpose? I think the question for you, as it was for me, is to answer whether or not your beliefs are apparent in your purpose. I know that so many people ask me, how can I find my life's purpose? How can I know what I'm supposed to be doing here? I'm so unfulfilled. I'm so filled with disconnect. And I'm so discontented with my life. And so what I think we have in this question is perhaps a roadmap where we begin to, as I said before, sort of step up to the plate and really step into ourselves and start to see ourselves as we truly are. One thing that we know is that we are all one. And I know that that's a very lofty concept for a lot of people. But we are one. We are all in this family of humanity together. Every single one of us is a human, just as the other is. And we have so many commonalities in terms of what we want for ourselves, for those we love, how we want to live our lives. We, of course, want to feel safe, and we want shelter, and we want food and clothing, and we want to experience the joys, the abundance, the prosperity of life. Those are a given. But I think that there is something beyond that we know. And I think that in our spirits, we know that what we are doing here is to be a giver of love, to be the expanders, the extenders of love itself, because it's that energy of compassion and kindness and joy and peace and that sense of freedom that are all parts of that love, all synonymous with love, that we all strive to share. And so could it be that our shared purpose is just to be in that place where we are constantly acknowledging and working towards the ability to be in that place of expanding and extending love? One of the things that would require is that we are also aware and working towards healing the parts of us that keep us small and separate from all of that. And so, how do we come into our purpose? Well, my pat answer whenever I'm asked that question is really just find whatever it is that makes your heart sing and do it. What I know and what I've seen in so many others is that when you find that, it's as if the universe just lays itself at your feet, and everything that you need from that will be brought to you. And so what we need to understand is that what makes our heart sing is always what is in alignment with that purpose of being an expansion and an extension of love. So today I had the privilege of being at this program in Boulder that was talking about consciousness. And the question was, does consciousness exist after we die? And there was this wonderful panel of speakers, but one in particular was a psychologist, Dr. Roy Hill, and he was telling the story about how it came to be that he is working now in this field of investigating consciousness and near-death experiences, things like that. And he told the story, first of all, of his the family of origin, all scientists, all very linear left brain in their thinking. And he sort of joked about being the black sheep of the family, being a psychologist, when his father was a physicist, his mother was a scientist, his brother, et cetera, et cetera. Well, anyway, he was working in a prison, and he told the story about how he was introduced to the continuation of consciousness through one of the inmates that he was treating, actually who was on a suicide watch on death row. And he talked about when the information that started to come through this inmate from his sister who had passed over into spirit When the information started to come through, of course, he didn't believe any of it. He also came from a very traditional educational system and a belief system that was very staunch, very dogmatic, very clear-cut about these things. And in fact, when he's first started to be confronted with the possibility that his belief system was maybe in need of some tweaking, he said, you know, his own religious upbringing about this being the work of the devil is what started to come up within him. And to make a long story short, this man, this scientist, this psychologist, who for many, many years had relied on this belief system to enable him to do his work and live his life and govern his choices and decisions and etc. There came a time, obviously, where he was confronted with evidence that said, maybe that just isn't true. Maybe there's something more. And it was only his willingness to say, how can I look at this differently, that allowed him to start to integrate these new thoughts and possibilities and a different potential for his life to come into being. He is now in his purpose. So he took the purpose that was shared to be an extension, an expansion of love. And his individual purpose was revealed to him through that. I can't tell you how many stories that I have heard just like this. Stories of dramatic changes in people's lives that occurred only when they reached this place within themselves of being able to ask, how can I see this differently? Because clearly the way I am seeing it now is making me miserable. It's what happened to me. And it's what happens to each and every one of us when we start to see ourselves as even worthy of living a different life, having the things in our lives that truly do make our hearts sing, not according to others' expectations or standards or stipulations, not according to the things that we've been told or taught, but just to give ourselves the opportunity to find that true happiness that will open the gateway for joy, for peace, for that freedom to be full expressions through us. It is my belief that that is our purpose. Our purpose is to always ask, how can I see this differently? To always be in that place where you're willing to ask what if, where you're willing to say, how can I be an expansion or an extension of this love, of this creative life force that will serve me, serve those I love, and serve all of humanity to create this world that we want to live in. And so in the first segment, which I will be showing here in Superior, Colorado on October 18th, and will be shown all around the world, you will begin to see how this spirit of love is always directing us to reveal our purpose within it. And when it does, how there just is no question that you're in the right place. And so I'd like to leave you there for this evening. I'm going to open up the board for any questions or remarks, anything that you would like to share. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch this video, to be part of the conversation, and hopefully to be asking yourself, how can I see it differently? What if there is something more? And what if the purpose that I've been seeking, I've been separate from, is just waiting for me the moment that I ask, how can I be an expansion or an extension of love? So thank you again. And we will be here again on October 7th for the second in these series. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to continuing our discussion and, of course, exploring all the possibilities that we have for being expansive expressions of who we truly, really are. So, okay, let me get us to the point where we can ask our questions. There we go. So anyone having any questions or comments? I'm ready. I've got my glasses on. Of course, just type away, okay? I did have a couple of questions actually that came through via emails that I can share with you while people are typing. So one of them was, what if you have no religious beliefs? Does that mean that you'll never find your life purpose? I thought this was such an incredible question, because so often there is this fear with so many of those outside of religious conviction that, as this question actually is pointing to, if there is this connection between being in this energy, this energy of love and finding purpose, are we saying that lives outside of that are meaningless? Absolutely not. All that is being said is that at the core of each and every one of us is this energy of love. It is the energy that we have been created from. Within it is everything that we need to know in order to do what it is that we came here to do. So when you're connected to your spirit, when you have allowed those paths of communication between your soul and your spirit to be an expression through you, you will have all the information that you need. You will have everything that you need in order to fulfill all that you are. And the truth is, religion has nothing to do with it. There are millions of people around the world who do not have religious convictions, who don't follow any dogma, and yet are so in tune, are so in touch with this core energy of love, that they are beautiful, full, expansive expressions of it in all that they do. And so it's not about religion. And you're going to see in the series of the documentary that religion is just a part of what's being examined. What's really being examined is this love that's at the basis of each and every one of us and is there for us to draw upon. And you can call it whatever you want, but it's there just for us because it is us. So, second question. What if you're unsure about your beliefs? What if you don't really believe in them, but are afraid of the ramifications if you change them? Well, here's what I want you to know. I would say probably 90% of the people who have changed belief systems have gone through that dark night of the soul, you might say, where they have been confronted with having to let go of parts of them that have defined them according to their families, their communities, their societies, their religions. And that fear of being abandoned or ostracized can be very powerful. And having experienced that myself, I know that it kept me where I was, which was small and separate from who I really came here to be, for quite some time. And all I can tell you is that there will be a moment where you will be so compelled that it will almost feel like a matter of life or death if you don't just break out and become the authentic you. What I've seen happen over and over and over again is people who are afraid of being that authentic expression, and I've watched them get very ill on every level, every dimension of their being. And so all I can say to you is this. If there are beliefs that you are holding on to out of fear, they can only create more fear in your life. In other words, that dark hole that is associated with those, where the real you is so buried and confined, will become deeper and deeper, greater and greater, and the parts of you that you're yearning to excavate will require more and more excavation. However, if you just ask that one question, well, what if? What if I came out with my beliefs? What if I started to live authentically to my beliefs? What if I just said, the heck with everybody else, and I just have to do this? And it meant doing something completely different than you had ever done before, or believing something so completely different than the rest of your family and your friends. All I can tell you is this, is that when that is in alignment with the core of your being, and you step into that, you will wonder how you ever lived before. And the universe will lay itself at your feet, because all of those things that you've been yearning to experience will then be able to make their way through and present them to you. And then you can start to live from that place of being in alignment and all the joy that's associated with that. I understand where you are. Like I said, I was there myself for a long time. And it takes courage, there's no question. But again, I guarantee that if you will love yourself enough to do that, that you'll never look back. And you'll wonder, as I said, how you ever loved and lived before without your heart fully engaged and on go. One more. Oh, this is an interesting question. What if you have beliefs, but you don't have faith? It's a great question. Well, I think that that's true for all of us at some time in our lives. Because I see beliefs as being the product of our programming, sort of the culmination of all of our experiences and our history. Our beliefs are present and they do govern us. And so if you don't have the faith to take that step forward, to allow yourself to imagine what your life could be like if you could get out of that place of being stuck, then my suggestion is that you allow yourself the possibility of developing faith by asking, what if I could develop faith? What would it be like? How would it serve me? What might it look like or sound like? And start gathering all of that data. All of that data will deliver you into this place of faith. And that faith, as we read in Journey Beyond Words, will take you into this place of knowingness. And all it required was that you allowed yourself to imagine, what if? What if it's possible? And so, until next time, I want to thank you again for being here, for sharing your energy, for sharing your presence, for sharing your intention, for sharing your possibilities, for sharing your potential, and for sharing your willingness to even possibly say, what if? I look forward until next time, and I am sending you so many blessings of this great love, and may you be fulfilled and find your purpose within it. Good night.